Welcome, trendsetters. We are Alicia and Nicole from Positive Image. As salon owners, hairstylists, and business coaches, we're here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of the beauty industry and discover the secrets to creating a thriving salon business. So grab your favorite beverage, cozy up in your salon chair, and let's dive into the world of hair, style, and entrepreneurship together. Welcome back to another episode with us, Positive Image, Nicole and Alicia.
Hey.
Today we are in Alicia's wheelhouse, big grin on her face. We're going to be talking about what numbers and what metrics can you not live without. So I will give the floor to you, Miss Metric.
I don't know if this is just my wheelhouse. I feel like you could do pretty good here too. I feel like you got a lot of spreadsheets all.
I write on coattails. I'm good at that.
There you go. So metrics. I feel like there needs to be like a why. Like who cares? They're just a nice little snapshot to see how your business is doing. This leads me to talk about KPIs also, which I think for us small business owners is like, what is all this nonsense and how do I figure it out? KPIs and metrics are what you use to monitor the health of your business as well as being able to set goals for growth. I like to see percent booked because that lets me know how much more available time and space do I have for income potential. So say if your business overall is booked 50%, that means you instantly know that you have the ability, without changing your staff or your space, you have the ability to make 50% more than you currently are making at minimum. For Nicole's like endless ability to turn things positive, I feel like for me, that gives me a positive outlook when I look at the like trying to make profitable months happen or profitable days happen and being able to say, okay, well, the glass is at half, but it's half full. We have so much more opportunity out there, so much more space for growth. And like we can double. It's literally possible to double what you're making now. Wow. And if you're already making profit or like close to being breaking even, I think that's why I like the book percentage the most and why I like to get people excited about that. I also use book percentage for like a stylist goal when they're growing. So if they're starting out at 30 or 40 because they just switched salons, then we know that they're going to be in a good, healthy spot by the time they get to 60, 70. And that's their spot where they really want to focus on growing month over month. Are they more booked than they were the month before? Yes, that is a slow roll. It's not a jumping from 30 to 70 the next month. That would make me question some things actually.
Yeah.
And then I really like pre-booked. There's some theories that pre-booking isn't good anymore the way it used to be. I have heard, yes, Nicole's giving me a funny scrunch face, like, what? Who's saying that? There are some people that I've heard, some influencers, coaches, podcasts that I've heard that suggest not to pre-book. And I've monitored it and I've watched it and I've considered it because I always like considering, is somebody's way better? Because if you don't already know me that well, I am a bit of a know-it-all. So I have to work hard to see how my way isn't always the best way. And I'm very open to what other people do, but it's hard for me to have someone want to put something on me as something I should do. But I do also, knowing who I am, want to open myself to, well, what would that create and would that be better? So what I've found is that pre-booking still keeps you busier, a higher percent book in those future months than not pre-booking, simply because you already have stuff there. So the people that are booking last minute have less space and they're going to fill up all the other days more. And time again, when I'm casting out and I'm suggesting to someone, would you like to pre-book? It's the face of like, oh yes, actually that worked out really well last time because I was starting to feel like I needed to get my hair done. And then I got a message the next day and I was like, yes, I don't have to do that thing. Especially in a time where people are so overwhelmed with how much they have to do and how much they have to remember and who they have to remember to call and entering in all their information to book online, because that is definitely way easier for them to book by calling. It's already done. So I do think that pre-booking is still good. I think where it may be a thing to not need as much is if you're someone who has 3 months booked out solid. I feel like that might be the bigger challenge. Your pre-booking is obviously going to be closer to 100%, which is wild. I think 25% for me is like a really good pre-booking percent. Nicole, what is your normal pre-booking percent?
90%.
Oh, really? Wow.
So I am booked out like 3 months, but I have opinions
Yeah, I want your opinions.
and very strong opinions. Pre-booking is how I build my business and how I have seen my team build their business. The team members that are at between 75 to 90% pre-booked, and we are very strong at pre-booking within the salon, time and time again, easily are always booked and are always booked up. I think of it as if you are walking by a restaurant and you look inside and it's absolutely dead inside and you see all the staff just standing around doing nothing versus the restaurant right next door that is busy.
Mm-hmm.
What restaurant are you going to want to go in to go have dinner? The busy one. There's something there. When it comes to pre-bookings, that's exactly how I see it. Is if there is always somebody in the chair, whether it's one person or two people, that's just going to create that energy to pull other clients in. And at the same time, especially leading up into Christmas, if you're already booked up these days, that's going to make people want to book rather than trying to get in last minute when they see all of your books are full. Well, she's too busy for me. I'm going to want to go somewhere else rather than making the client feel like they're a value client and they have this time dedicated to them. I'm not trying to squeeze them in. I get a chance to organize and to make my schedule look exactly how I want it to, rather than allowing the customer to manipulate my schedule for me. So these are all the reasons why I love pre-booking. The hard part is trying to book travel for myself or vacation time for myself. So I need to really pre-plan that 3 to 5 months in advance, or at least book off like weeks here and there before my schedule gets a hold of me. So there is pros and cons to it, but my belief, and I have yet to find a reason why this belief shouldn't be strong, is that if you want to build a clientele and you want to build a strong business, then you really need to focus on your pre-booking time and time again. I expect from my team at least 50 to 55 as the base minimum. And a good, strong stylist is going to be between the 80 to 90% and sometimes even 100.
I love that. Okay, so I'm gonna say this then. If you're good at pre-booking and you've been doing it, then we want that to be 70 to 100%. If you're new at it, let's first strive for 25%, because you're going to need to switch the mindset of your client,
Yes.
especially if you're if you have lots of last minute bookers. But keep in mind, the value is exactly what Nicole's saying, is that you're taking care of them. You're holding on to that loyalty of, no, I have time. I've sectioned out time for you. I want to make sure that I have time for you and you're in my schedule. It is important to me as a stylist that you are in my schedule. I want to see you again.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly. And I think like having and switching the client's mindset is difficult. It is really hard to do because if they're used to your schedule always being open and they can book last minute. So sometimes what I'll say is like, let's just put it in. You can always switch it. It's always really hard to switch. And 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and going, you know what? It was actually really nice to have this booked for me. I didn't have to think about it. I find 6 to 8 weeks is a really good amount of time. That's usually when their haircut will start giving them like, oh, this is driving me nuts. Because if you wait another 2, 3 weeks after that, it usually calms down and goes into the next sort of phase of the haircut. So you're catching that within the frustrating time, which again reinforce you as the expert, knowing that their hair needs to be done every 6 to 8 weeks. And then if you're doing colors and stuff like that, it's usually when the toner or the color will start to shift and start to become brassy. So then you can go step in there and give them a quick color refresh if that's what you need as well. Let's move on. So this podcast isn't all about pre-booking because apparently I could spend 10 minutes talking about that.
RTS, retail to service sales. Do you have a percent goal?
My top sellers are about 20%. I like to see the number above 12 to 15, I think is really good. And if they can achieve 20 to 25, then they're having the conversations.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think for me, my goal for everyone is to be 15 to 20. Business overall to be 20. And then exactly the high achievers is 25 or more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think exactly that. Like that, I feel like that's another loyalty thing. And I feel like we've talked about that in another podcast, or maybe it's just in our masterclass. But the fact of the matter is, and I feel like you can hear tons of different people talk about this, when you're not selling, but sharing and educating your client, whether it's retail or pre-booking and letting them know how often they need to come in, these things create loyalty. And so if your client is walking out with product, and it might not be in every time, because if they're coming in every 6 to 8 weeks, they're probably not out of shampoo and conditioner yet. So maybe every other time, or maybe every time they get one piece because they've ran out of one thing. And it's just those little things of making sure that you're asking, because your client forgets, but it's what you do all day long. So there's no reason for you to forget. A little bit of gray area if you're starting out. I get there's a lot of things in your head, but these are key things that make the client feel like you care enough about them and their hair to take care of, even when they're not in the floor. And then retention. I like retention because like you might be at a busy space, but if those people aren't actually coming back to that stylist, or you as a business isn't having a good retention and the client isn't seeing another stylist, they're just coming and then leaving and never coming back, like you need to do something about the inside.
Well, and I think the retention is good because if your pre-booking numbers are really good, but then your retention number is really bad, are you having that conversation where they're scared to say no to your rebooking?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they rebook. And then once they go home going, yeah, no, I'm just going to cancel that online because that's an easy thing to do now too. So it tells a lot about the conversation or the interaction that the stylist is also having with the clients as well.
Tell us about daily average.
So daily average is one of those numbers that I really like to look at within the team. And the reason why is because I like to travel. My team likes to travel. We take days off, but the daily average really gives us an indication of how much that stylist or person is bringing in that day. And so if you take the daily average of 1 month versus another month, even if they've had time off or something's happened in their life, it can really give you a good indication of like, Are they consistently selling? Is that daily average increasing month to month, or is it declining month to month? And it kind of gives, when you're having a conversation with your team or with your salon owner, it gives it a very much more palatable number to work with. So when you're working into the 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 amounts, that can seem really overwhelming and daunting. But if you're looking at like, I just need you to, like, your baseline is $300 a day, or your baseline is $500 a day, that's a lot easier number to swallow. And that seems to be sometimes a lot more attainable, and people can get their minds around like, yeah, I can do that in a day, rather than, oh, how am I going to do $10,000 in a month? That's a big number. So that's why I really like the daily average number.
I like that.
What would you say your favorite metric is?
I think it's still pre-book. And month over month sales. So I like the way you're talking about it, doing the daily average instead of month over month, because then that it does talk about how many hours they were actually working versus not. But I do also like to see if they are growing, that bigger, broader scale of month over month.
So another one that I've like to look at that is a bit different is I like to look at the tips of my team, and with neutrality. There is no judgment when it comes to tipping. I'm not comparing one to the other, but really, that as an owner, that gives me like some interesting feedback as to, are the clients really enjoying the experience with that person? Is potentially, are they not charging enough because the clients feel that they're not being charged enough for their service, so they're going to compensate with tip? Are they are the clients not having a good experience? So are the tips, is it going on like a downward projection or an upward projection? And it's not something that's tangible. It's not something that you can just say, well, your tips are going lower and lower, so what's happening here? But it's more of like kind of an indication or an inkling or a nudge as to like where that stylist headspace is, and are they having, like, what are the conversations that they're having? Is it a client positive experience, or is it a client negative experience? Because I think at the end of the day, the tips are really going to tell you that. And I know my salon versus Alicia salon they're two different kind of models when it comes to that, but it is I think in the ballpark of, I think tipping is a good thing for the client to kind of do on their own rather than having it built in. And I know that's a totally different podcast from what we're we're talking about today, but it is one of those metrics that is not a common metric for salon owners to look at, I don't think. But there is reasons and why that I do like to kind of see what's happening with those numbers.
Yeah, I really like that one. I think that makes sense. Just really like considers what are the ebbs and flows and what is going on with your stylist. Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And you have another one.
Yeah. So the returning client versus the new client. So if we're looking at the percentage booked and just the daily average and stuff like that, those could all be really, really high. But if that stylist is constantly getting new clients, and their retention numbers are low, or they're returning, then what kind of a conversation are we going to have with that stylist? Their numbers look really good, but then they're not building their clientele. They're still staying consistent. So I like to see probably 5 to 10% with new clients versus returning, unless they're building, like they're a new stylist, they're building their team. And then within the new clients, like, are they referrals? Are they just random walk-ins? If the new clients is a whole lot of referrals, then I want the rest of my team to also hear what they're doing to get in new clients too, and to get those referrals in as well. So having kind of that information, and that also starts from what conversations we're having when we are booking clients in, or even what your system is taking. If they are a new client, is there a place for the new client to put, like, how did you hear about us? Or do you have a referral system within your salon where your clients are getting the bonuses from their referrals too? So that's kind of fun with those new client versus returning clients.
Yeah, I really like that one. And like that's also a goal, right? Is we want to continuously be attracting new clients. So I think that's
Exactly.
a good thing to consider.
Yeah.
So we wanted to give everyone a challenge for 2025,
Yes.
and that is to create a budget and stick to it. We wanted to give you some pointers on how to make this easy, and that creating a budget can be daunting. And I think that's kind of the problem first and foremost. So I think my first thing would be a matter of taking a look at what your previous year was or your current year was, and seeing having a review of, did you overspend in areas? Did you underspend? And did you make profit? So that would be your first consideration, because you need to know if there needs to be changes for the next year. And then you're going to break that down by the month. For me, I always teeter with the idea of breaking it down by the month, but not having it equal, because like January tends to be quieter than December. So I'd want to have a lower budget for January, because I would project that the sales would be lower in January than they would be in December. So you can also do that too. You can suggest a projected increase year over year from the month itself. So say we want to have 10% growth on January. So whatever our last year's January was, you're going to add 10% to that to the coming year. And then you're going to look to see if your budget spend of the previous year has space to go up, or really it needs to stay where it is, or it needs to go lower. And then you're going to look at all the different ways that you spend money, fixed or variable, and put those things in there. So that the initial setup is going to take you a bit of time, but once you have that set up, it should be pretty simple. And setting aside for yourself 20 minutes every week just to review and make sure you're staying in line, staying in within your budget, seeing where you went out. And then if you do go out, whether you're higher or lower, that doesn't mean that you just stick to the same budget the next month. That means you either keep the money you saved that you didn't spend, or that means you lower an expense if you overspent and you cut back on something for the next month, so that you can balance out and catch up month over month versus continuing to spend more just because it's in your budget initially. And that's part of that, like 20 minutes reviewing where things are at and where you might need to teeter some things. Nicole, you want to give some easy pointers?
I find that at the end of each day, more so when I was a single owner or like a small salon owner versus where I am now, I would, any sort of quick purchases that I made, because those are usually the ones that get lost, I would just go through and just to put them on a note. So you can use your phone, you can use notes on there. Sometimes when I'm driving home, I'll do like voice to text. So if I know, oh, I had a quick cream coffee, blah, 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 and just have a running sort of tally in total. That way, when you're doing your 20 minutes a week, you're not sitting there going, oh, what did I spend this, that, and the other on? And it's a lot easier at that point in time. You can get an Excel spreadsheet. You can even take the information from your accountant or your bookkeeper as to what categories are and just kind of copy and paste those over if you're trying to figure out what the calculations are for your categories. And then I guess part two with that challenge is once you have a few months in a row, could you be open to the possibility of sharing your budget with your team
Yeah.
and sharing these numbers with your team? I did this in the summertime and it was a huge challenge to share this, like to really be vulnerable and open with like, this is where the business is at. This is how much we spend. And it was an amazing aha for everybody. And it was fantastic. And I think it brought the team together more because it wasn't like they could actually see where the money goes. It's not like, oh, Nicole's, earning this and that from me. It's like, no, this is $60,000 goes like a snap in a month. It is disgusting how quickly it can disappear. But teams don't know that. So now that you have this budget that we're hopefully challenging you, the second part to the challenge is show your team and show them what it takes to run a salon. What's the point in kind of keeping that a secret?
Yeah.
We should be transparent about it. So
I like that. I think that's great. Anything else you want to add?
I do. This is very daunting. The numbers, the metrics, and all of this information, it is difficult. And if you don't have a brain or a full understanding of this, there's so many places that you can get help. You can talk to your accountant. You can find accounting coaches, or the local city will have, or CRA if you're in Canada, it does have information. But another place that you can also get help is from us. And we've done master classes on this, know your numbers, but we've actually been able to turn our master class into a online course that you can take and that you can really understand your numbers, your metrics, and really look at what's important to you. We have built budget spreadsheets and make that as seamless as possible. So if you want to know more or take this course, reach out to us at hello on Instagram at hello.positiveimage. And all the ways to get in touch with us are below in the show notes as well. So we are also here to help you and help you understand everything moving forward.
Love that.
Anything else
No,
to share?
That's amazing. We sure are. We're here. Wealth of knowledge.
Wealth of knowledge, yes. And years of doing it ourselves too, like tried, trusted, and true. Okay. Well, Happy New Year.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Take this knowledge and just keep developing yourself. And hey, we want to hear from you too. Join the conversation using our hashtag #PositiveImagePodcast. Share your thoughts, questions, and success stories. Who knows? We might just feature you on an upcoming episode. Don't keep us a secret. Tag your friends too. Want to keep learning? Check out our show notes. Find us on Instagram at hello.positiveimage, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode filled with inspiration and insights.